Have you ever screamed in silence only to realize no one hears? As if the sorrow locked itself in a hidden room of the soul, and though the seasons keep turning, that room stays untouched. Someone still sits in the dark, back turned to the door. Some people leave this world but remain alive in our wounds, and no matter how many dawns the earth repeats, the soil where we buried that absence refuses to bloom. There was a man in a distant village who sold broken mirrors. He didn't fix them, didn't polish them, just wrapped them in linen cloth and offered them quietly. He claimed each shard reflected a piece of what was left unsaid, and that if you wanted to see what truly remained, you'd first have to bleed on what was shattered. A woman known as Aurora bought one of those mirrors. She never said whose absence she carried, but it was clear she walked as though trying to step outside her own memories. For 7 nights, she left the mirror unwrapped by her bedside, and every time she closed her eyes, she dreamed of the same door, half open, breathing the scent of wet childhood. On the 8th night, she sat before the mirror instead of sleeping, not to see her reflection, but to find, within the shards, the outline of the one who had left. It was her father, gone in a season of heavy silences and withheld embraces. Aurora cried without sound, as if watering a dead flower, still hoping for a pulse. She didn't know it yet, but the mirror held a path. And that night, a journey began. Not in search of answers, but of a place where silence would finally stop hurting. Aurora returned to the mirror each night like someone revisiting a secret shrine. She wasn't seeking forgiveness, nor words. She sought the gesture that was never made, the hug left hanging, the goodbye that never crossed her throat. Each shard reflected a moment, but none held the whole. She remembered the last time she saw her father. He was staring out the window like someone already leaving his own body. She wanted to speak, but pride, the kind inherited in silence, held her still. Between them, only the sound of a kettle boiling, and all that remained unspoken. In the mirror, she saw her father before the weight of blame, laughing with squinted eyes, fixing broken toys, singing old songs about oceans and promises. Time doesn't erase, it dusts over. And when you blow softly, the flame of memory reveals what still burns. One shard showed her own hand, reaching out. It wasn't a memory, it was an invitation. A gesture from what could have been still asking to be accepted. Aurora wept again, not from pain, but from realizing love remained, even after the body had gone. She walked the village with a lighter step. Neighbors noticed her eyes, once dim, now carried the color of morning. But none knew about the mirror. None knew that each night she met with what was lost, and there, in silence, wove a new map for the love that stayed. Some losses aren't meant to be forgotten. They only ask for a quiet place to rest inside us. On the 12th night, Aurora woke before dawn. There was a different kind of calling, as if the mirror no longer wished to be watched, but answered. She carried the shards to the garden behind the house, to a forgotten patch between old stones. There she began to dig with bare hands. Each shard she buried was a word never said. I'm sorry. I stayed. I missed you. I tried. All the phrases that never found their voice now lay beneath the soil. She covered them with dry leaves, like returning something sacred to the earth, and for a moment, the wind itself seemed to bow in quiet thanks. Rain came the next day, a soft, unhurried rain, the kind that doesn't rush to cleanse. Aurora stood at her window watching the soil soak, feeling something inside her being watered too. Not grief, not joy, something quieter. That night she dreamed of her father sitting at the edge of the garden. He said nothing, just listened to the silence with a faint smile. Behind him, small white flowers had bloomed where the buried words now slept, as if love had found a language beyond sound. Whispers circled through the village. Some said Aurora had begun speaking with the dead. Others believed the mirror held enchantments. But no one dared to ask. Her silence was respected more than any explanation. Aurora knew there was no spell, only the brave act of touching what aches, without trying to erase it. Because not all wounds need to heal. Some just want to be held with tenderness. One afternoon, Aurora found an old box in the attic. Covered in dust and time, it seemed to have waited patiently just for her. Inside were letters never sent, faded photographs, and a watch forever stopped at 3:17. Everything inside smelled like an interrupted goodbye. She sat on the wooden floor for hours, reading each piece as if listening to echoes. Notes from her father to her mother, scribbles from childhood, a drawing of two hands nearly touching. It was as though the house had preserved in silence all that was left unsaid. And now, little by little, it was handing the memories back. Aurora felt something else in that space, a soft presence, like someone walking beside her without casting a shadow. Was it her father? Or perhaps a part of herself, finally learning to love without fear? Maybe it was both. Maybe neither. That night, she didn't go to the mirror. She lit a single candle and let the house breathe. The flame flickered gently as if it too recognized the ghosts and welcomed them with grace. The silence was different now, not hollow, but inhabited. Aurora wrote a letter she would never send. She apologized for what was never said, thanked him for the small things, admitted the ache, but added, "It hurts less now." She folded the letter carefully and placed it beside the watch in the box, then whispered, "The time we missed now visits me in dreams." There was something sacred in that house, a place where the worlds touched, and no one truly had to leave. The next morning, the village woke to stillness. No breeze stirred the trees, and even the chapel bells seemed to have forgotten how to ring. Aurora walked to the mirror with a quiet sense of expectancy, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The linen cloth once covering it now lay gently on the floor, removed by unseen hands. She knelt before the shards. But this time, her father didn't appear. Instead, she saw herself as a child, sitting on a wooden bench, eyes wide, hands clenched in silence. That was where it all began, the blind spot of sorrow, the moment love was mistaken for absence. Aurora reached out and touched one of the pieces. Blood traced slowly from her fingertip, tinting the reflection with truth. She did not cry out. The pain wasn't punishment, it was memory being washed clean. From within the mirror, a pale light emerged, like a breeze moving through the image, and for the first time she heard her father's voice. "You grew up, and I never truly left." Not spoken aloud, but felt, a warmth inside, like the calm that follows fever. At that very moment, the wind returned, soft and round, brushing her hair like a remembered touch. And Aurora smiled, unafraid, because forgiveness is not an act. It is a home where time can rest in peace. She gathered the fragments and placed them back into the attic box. They no longer cut. Now they were simply memories returning to their rightful place. In the days that followed, Aurora began to visit the river behind the sunflower fields. She had avoided it for years. It was the place where her father once taught her to fish the silence. Now she sat by the bank with bare feet, letting the water touch her like a prayer without sound. The river moved slower than before. Its current carried dry leaves, crooked twigs, and flower petals, like a procession of memories asking no questions. Aurora began to release small slips of paper into the stream. Each held a sentence she never said. They sank softly, as if bowing in farewell. One morning she found a boy sitting at the same bank. He stared at the current with a gaze she recognized, the face of someone who had lost too early. She sat beside him without a word. From her pocket, she offered a smooth stone, a gift once given to her in grief. The boy smiled and returned the gesture with a long, steady look. Neither of them spoke. In that moment she understood. The forgiveness she nurtured in herself could now belong to others. By holding her own sorrow with kindness, she opened a space to mend what still trembled in the world. Aurora walked home lighter. In the attic box, she placed a small note with just one phrase, "I can remember now without bleeding." She closed the lid without sadness, the way one finishes a book read with love. Because when forgiveness arrives, time learns how to breathe again. Aurora returned to the village where everything began. But now her steps didn't chase shadows. They drew paths of return. The mirror seller was gone. Some said he vanished on a foggy morning, leaving behind an empty stall and a note pinned to the wind. The shards have done their part. Now it's you who weaves the unseen. She walked to the town square and planted a small olive sapling. No plaque, no name, no noise. Just a seed of peace rooted in the heart of the earth. Around it, people began to sit closer. Someone whispered that dreams had grown clearer since that day. Another swore they smelled childhood in the breeze, though the air was still. No one could explain. They only felt something had shifted, like when autumn chooses to bloom ahead of time. Aurora now walked with empty hands and a sky-filled chest. She no longer searched for answers in mirrors, but in waters, in quiet gestures, in the eyes of those who remained. And when she lay down at night, it wasn't to dream of the departed, but to listen, in stillness, to the presence that never left. In one final letter she never sent, she wrote, "I forgive you without forgetting. I carry you without weight. I love you now, with space." She placed the letter in a bottle and released it to the river so the world might know. Some pains don't fade, but they learn how to bloom. All that leaves returns, when the soul is ready. If this story touched the mirror you keep hidden, light a candle and listen for the next whisper in silence. Keep walking. The mirrors of the unseen still remember your name.